President Biden is delivering a primetime speech tonight in Philadelphia.
That's right. The White House says this address will focus on what the president has repeatedly called the battle for the soul of the nation. Mr. Biden has been active in recent weeks trying to energize Democrats as we count down to the midterms. He is expected to continue his harsh criticisms of what he describes as MAGA Republicans, warning they are a threat to democracy.
And joining us now is CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, great to see you. So what can we expect to hear from the president tonight?
Tanya and Errol, good to see you. He'll be speaking just 2.5 miles from another downtown Philadelphia spot where he first talked about this battle for the soul of the nation when he launched his White House bid back in 2019. But tonight, he's going to make a far more partisan, strident, direct criticism of those that he says are chipping away at American democracy. And yet, a senior official who briefed reporters on this just a little while ago insists, quote, "This is not a speech about the former president. This is a speech about American democracy." It comes, of course, amid the former president's legal troubles and the rise of Republican candidates backed by the former president who are touting the fact that they don't agree with the results of the 2020 elections, believe the White House was stolen from Donald Trump, and might end up being in charge of some key election controls in 2024 if they're elected as Attorney General or Secretary of State, even governor in some states. The White House insists the focus will be on MAGA Republicans, not the Republican Party writ large, but a movement that is pushing these anti-democratic views. And they remind us that this is something the president has talked about frequently over the course of his presidency. Not only his belief that he's got to restore the soul of the nation, but that democracies in this world are up against autocracies that are on the rise in places like Asia and the Middle East, and that ultimately democracy needs to prevail and carry the globe through this next century. He will speak from Independence Hall, a place that's been used as a backdrop by presidents before, but also in a state that he's set to visit now 3 times over the course of a week at the start of the traditional midterm campaign season. He was in Wilkes-Barre, of course, earlier this week. He'll be in Pittsburgh on Monday. Pennsylvania is ground zero for much of the battleground elections this fall. They have a big and expensive open governor's race and a bigger and more expensive U.S. Senate race where Democrats believe they might be able to pick up a seat and possibly stop Republicans from taking control.
Let's speak more about Pennsylvania, Ed, because it's interesting President Biden's making that distinction between elected Republicans, the GOP in general, and these quote-unquote MAGA Republicans, those who support the former president. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy will also be speaking in Pennsylvania ahead of the president's speech. And on Saturday, former President Trump will be there, too, holding a rally miles down from where the president is speaking today. Talk to us more about why Pennsylvania is such a focus right now.
Well, I mean, look, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio. Those are the big traditional political battlegrounds in a presidential year that this year also happen to be holding open governor and Senate races or statewide races that Democrats and Republicans both believe they've got a shot at winning. Republicans continue to focus on the fact that our polling and those by other organizations shows the economy, concerns about inflation remain top of mind with voters. But what's notable is just in the last few weeks, we've seen concerns about the future of democracy rise into the top tier. It was third in the CBS News Battleground Tracker. It was first in one poll taken by NBC, for example, in recent weeks, which suggests that if Republicans can keep the focus on the economy and inflation and the president's oversight of the economy, they believe they can win. If the president can change the subject and the focus to concerns about democracy, extreme Republicans taking control of Congress and doing things regarding climate change, abortion rights, and other matters, then they believe Democrats do. They can motivate their base and beat Republicans in key elections over the course of the next few weeks. Minority Leader McCarthy, who of course would become Speaker if Republicans win majority of the House in November and if he can survive a caucus vote, is going to make the argument today that the president is needlessly and incorrectly focusing on attacking Republican and Republican voters instead of focusing on the, quote, disaster that he has overseen across the country since he became president.
Ed O'Keefe, so many issues out there swirling that could motivate voters. Ed O'Keefe at the White House, thank you so much.
Take care.